Thank you, Adrija, for joining us. It's such a wonderful opportunity to discuss about your book, which so resonates with all the Delhiites. And today we will just delve into a bit of Q&A with you to know you more as an author.
And thank you so much for having me over to
It's,
discuss.
it's a pleasure. Just to start with, what made you write this book?
So, this book, Delhi in the Name, it came out
Yeah.
in 2021. And I'm sure you know that this was a time when there was a spree of name changes happening in our
Yes.
country. When
Yeah.
Allahabad became
Yeah.
Prayagraj,
Yeah.
then Faizabad became Ayodhya. There was also the Deen Dayal, a Mughal Sarai station that suddenly became Deen Dayal
Yeah.
Upadhyay. So there were all these name changes happening. There was a lot of chatter around these name changes. And I thought of writing something, basically just delving into what does a name encapsulate and why is it that the change of a name is so symbolic. What
Yeah.
is it that those in power want to tell us when they
Yeah.
change a name? Now, the reason I mean, I could have gone all over the place with names across the entire subcontinent or
Yeah.
or the world, but I chose to stick to Delhi. One very obvious reason being that it is the national capital. So anything that happens in Delhi is sort of reflexive of the mood of the country.
Yeah.
And it's not just at the moment, it's always happened ever since it became the capital of, even when the Mughals were in power, when they saw Delhi uh, as their imperial capital, or when the British moved here, a lot of the changes or the way the city was being built, the kind of names that were being enshrined on the places, it was sort of reflexive of the national mood. And in post-independence India, it's all the more because now you have some clear contours of nationalism drawn.
Yeah.
And with Delhi as a capital of new India, everything that, every time there's a government change, every time there is, something as basic as when a protest breaks out in any other part of the country also, you will find resonances in Delhi.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, when the anti-CAA protests happen, about which also I write in my book, in my final chapter, it starts off in Assam, but it's immediately you will find its resonances in Delhi. So in that sense, by virtue of the fact that it's a national capital, there is something to be said about street names over here, which tells us something about the larger history of India.
Yeah.
One reason was this. The second reason being, it's a personal reason. The city is very close to my heart. I moved here as a 17-year-old, like many students who move to Delhi to study in Delhi universities,
Yeah.
some of its renowned colleges. I moved as one of those young students, and I immediately fell in love with the city. I think there's something to be said about how it sort of embraces people from all kinds of parts of the world, parts of India, all regardless of what community, what language, what caste, etc., that you're coming from. I mean, Delhi that way, it's very welcoming towards everyone.
Yes.
And it also can. It's one of those cities where people come with a lot of ambitions, and you often see them coming true as
Yeah.
well. So it's really a city for migrants like me, and it can give a lot to people who newcomers to the city. That is exactly what is very very close to me
Being a
about this
Delhiite,
city.
very nice to hear that. But I would follow up with a question: which Delhi story surprises you the most while you were writing your book or during your college days? What is about Delhi that makes you?
There are many.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you some perspective.
Sure.
When I was in college, also I was a student of history, and Delhi is like, it's a playground for students of history, because just because of I mean, just look around you. You'll
Yeah.
walk, you'll walk around the street, you'll see some tomb. You'll walk a little further, you'll see some odd community that is
Yeah.
suddenly made a settlement over
Yeah.
here. Like, close by, you have Humayunpur,
Yes.
which has become a hub of northeasterns. And you will start wondering, how is this happening? This is in the middle of a lot of Punjabi settlements, perhaps you'll suddenly have one neighborhood that is,
Yes.
a hub of northeasterners.
Yeah.
Look at Majnu Ka Tila.
Yep.
All of a sudden, and what is Majnu Ka Tila? The name by itself, it refers to a particular Sufi saint. But here is a colony that has come up for Tibetan refugees. How do you make sense
Yeah.
of that? So there are so many things that would come across as absolutely mind blowing to me. And this is when I was a student, and I would often go out with my friends to just explore the city. There's also newfound freedom. You're young, you've just been in
Yeah.
college, you're seeing new places all around, and there was this surprise element there. When I started writing my book, I was fascinated by just how much more there is to Delhi, despite the fact that there's so many books that has come out.
Yes.
That, I mean, it's a very favorite topic for historians.
Yes.
But there's so much more. For instance, the fact that Delhi has such a recent history as well. On one hand, you have the Mughal history, where Old Delhi, the entire area around Chandni
Yes.
Chowk, and there's
Yes.
little streets, each of which will have small stories attached to them. But then there is the aspect of post-independence Delhi,
Yeah.
which is also it's so wonderful about
It's
how
vibrant.
it's vibrant.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, these DDA colonies that are
Yes.
there all over, particularly the South Delhi and the newer parts of Delhi. I mean, I was surprised to know how this was an idea that was conceived by Pandit Nehru as affordable housing for middle class Indians from across the country who came to Delhi
Yeah.
to settle down in the 60s, in the 70s, to make apna ghar hona was a very
Important.
big deal at that for that generation, and he made it happen. So you have these DDA colonies even now, and it's just so symbolic of what aspirations in the years immediately after independence meant, and
Yes.
what the founders of New India were thinking,
Yeah.
in terms of how do we make
Yeah.
Delhi a home for everyone.
And taking the leeway from here and perspective, you being a history student, how myth shapes the city's vibe or the history, as per you, I mean, what is your notion?
So, first we need to understand what is the idea of myth. It is somebody's truth,
Yes.
may not be everyone's truth. It is, I think, the idea of myth, it is best, it comes across in Old Delhi, where
Yeah.
you said your office
Yeah.
is, I don't think there's any
There's a
part.
cultural assimilation, fusion.
Yes, yes. So every time, and for my books, the first chapter is on Chandni Chowk, which is basically about Old Delhi.
Yes.
Like, interestingly, we now colloquially refer to it as Chandni Chowk, whereas that was just that one street that
Yeah.
went from Red Fort to Fatehpuri Masjid.
Absolutely.
Now the entire place is called Chandni Chowk. Now there's an entire segment in my book, in the Chandni Chowk chapter, in which I have gone about speaking to people in the nooks and corners of Old Delhi and asking them about what they think about the name of the street in which they
Yes.
are living. And I was quite astounded by some of the responses. Like,
They must be feeling belonged,
yeah, but also the constant references to certain terms of history. Like, for instance, ये तो यहाँ पे शहजादों के टाइम से ये शहर बसा हुआ है.
Yeah.
This idea, it's so embedded that we belong to a lineage of shahzadas, and
Yes.
that is what Old Delhi means to
Absolutely.
us. There was this one small little lane. Its name is Lattu Shah Ki Gali, and I refer to it in my book. So when I started talking to people there, they didn't know who is Lattu Shah. Why do we have this name of this place after him? And he tells me that, Lattu Shah was a friend of Emperor Shah Jahan, and Shah Jahan के बहुत खास दोस्त हुआ करते थे, and उनके नाम पे हमारा ये इलाका है. Now, if you look at historical textbooks, you would probably never come across, or I don't know, maybe there are some references, but we don't exactly know who is this person, Lattu Shah. But and whether at all he was connected with or associated with Shah Jahan. but it does give the people of this place a sense of pride, a sense of identity by saying that, we live in a place that is named after someone who was a close associate of Emperor Shah Jahan. So it's not, it's also about how these myths are giving people a sense of identity,
Yeah.
which is very key to how a name
Absolutely.
of a place is, what it does.
Absolutely. And while going through your book, I mean, there's a sense, there's a personal perspective, I mean, which I thought, is Delhi losing touch with its past?
The fascinating thing about Delhi, I feel, is that its past keeps changing way too soon.
Yeah.
Like, one can actually sit in 2025 and feel nostalgic about the early 2000s in Delhi,
Yeah.
because things change that quickly. So I won't say Delhi is losing touch with its history. It's just that history is constantly being made in Delhi, and it's constantly reshaping, and that's the beauty of this place also, because again, you have the political center, the bureaucracy, the media, the university, everything sort
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
conglomerated,
confluence
the
of,
confluence over
yeah.
here. So it keeps changing so quickly that it's just constantly on the move, and it's difficult to.
Yeah, no, it's getting better to know you, and because then when somebody reads your book and get to understand what you are saying, it directly gives them a perspective that it's a first-hand account. It's an approach that you have gone out in the streets, in the market, and spoken to people about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Another topic which we want to touch upon, which is a very sensitive topic, I mean, because whenever we look at the word historian, in your bio it says passion historian, as per you, who is a historian?
It's a little difficult to
Yeah.
answer this question, especially because we're living in times
Yep.
in which history has become such a popular, very loved subject, I feel.
Yes, absolutely.
All over social media, you have people speaking about nuggets
Yeah.
of history, little anecdotes. But I still feel that there is a science to history writing.
Yeah.
I mean, because I studied history in college as well, and and I know that I've academically dealt with the subject. There is a science to history writing, where you engage with the past as a scholar, as an academic. You dig into archives, you try to bring out the truth,
Yeah.
and as objectively as possible.
Yes.
And that requires a level of training. So, if you ask me who is a historian, one who can engage with the science of history writing and not just talk about facts, but
Yeah.
also look at it more scientifically, in a more nuanced, objective manner.
Yes, absolutely.
So that is what I would say qualifies as a
Yeah.
historian.
And while we are coming to the end of this segment, we would like to understand which anecdote closely resonates to you that you have written in your book.
Um, the chapter on Shaheen Bagh, that
Oh.
sort of, it's very close to my heart. Perhaps also because, we saw the protests happening right
Yes.
in front of us, and I was reporting on it while I was writing this book. What really surprised me was that I did not know how much of a close association Delhi had with Muslims
Yeah.
in the past, and how it slowly started losing that touch after the 1857 revolt, then
Yes.
later the partition. That connection with the Muslim community is something that really came as a surprise to me. It also, I thought that it was something new that I have found as well. So I was really blown away with that.
One last question. If you ever want us to design a nice walking tour, taking a clue from your book, which location would you like us to do that?
I will say there are curations which can be picked from the book. One
Sure.
is, I feel, my third chapter deals with Chittaranjan Park. And
Yeah.
although it is talking about just the naming of Chittaranjan Park, it delves
But the food
deeper.
and the religious part is very, very
Yeah,
inspiring.
and also the larger history of Bengali community
Yes.
in Delhi. So I personally feel there is a nice walk that can come up on the history of Bengalis in Delhi,
Sure.
which can, it stretches all the way from Kashmiri Gate and the
Yeah.
entire area around Chandni Chowk, where initially the Bengali community was located,
Yeah.
and then how it moves all the way to Chittaranjan Park.
Yeah.
and that is a great walk to curate, perhaps.
Absolutely.
And also the cultural standpoints over here, the Kali mandirs, where the biggest Durga pujas happen.
Absolutely. Certainly, we will
Space.
take your thoughts on the Chitranjan Park.
Yes.
I will be very pleased to develop that as a walk icon for you, and you leading it whenever the
That would be
time
wonderful.
is permitting at your end. But thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank
for
you so
coming
much.
here and talking to us. And certainly, we will be announcing a new session soon.
Thank you so
Adrija.
much. It was lovely chatting with you.
Pleasure. Thank you.